Welcome to EliteGuitarist.com. My name is Taso Comanescu, and today I'll be teaching you how to play Serenata Espanola by the Spanish composer Joaquin Malats. Malats originally wrote this piece for piano, solo piano, in the key of G minor. And in the classical guitar world, we've taken this piece and we've transcribed it to the key of A minor. And there are many, many transcriptions and arrangements of this beautiful, beautiful piece. And I will be going off of one of the earlier ones by the great Spanish guitarist Andres Segovia. And I'll mention as I go through it a few of the reasons why I chose his. I would also encourage you to watch videos and listen to recordings of other guitarists playing this piece, and you can form your own interpretation. In addition to the technical aspects of the piece, I'll be going over some phrasing options, colors, dynamics, tempo, the use of vibrato and rubato throughout. And this comes from playing the piece in concert over the last couple years and also studying it. I love this piece. I'll be using this prototype of a signature model that we're developing over here at Elite Guitarist for our students. This is a mid-tier price guitar that we hope to have available soon for you guys, so let us know what you think of the sound. All right, here we go, measure one. So it's an A minor shape to start off. You want to have an open A in the bass. That's the first note of the song. And the bass note is marked staccato throughout in Segovia's transcription in the opening intro phrase, bars 1 through 4. So you can get comfortable by planting your index, middle, and A finger, IMA, on the inner strings here, and your thumb on the 5th string, and just warm up by plucking that A, free stroke, and bringing it back. And you can do the same thing for the low E, because that's going to be happening throughout. Same thing with IM and A here. So you're isolating the right hand. It's a great exercise if you're new to articulations of this kind. Then when you add the left hand, that's where the magic occurs. So in bar 1, you have a 2/3 bar with your index finger on the 1st fret, so that's covering 4 of the strings. And you're going to put your 2nd and 3rd finger on the 2nd frets of the D and the G string there. And you start with an open A, staccato, and then I am an A, pluck the inner strings, 4, 3, 2, and then you're going to be pulling off a free stroke pull off, so not down to mute the underlying string, but just up like this from E to D sharp. Bring your thumb, play that E, and then plant your I am an A again down on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings, like this, to create that articulation. So this is bar 1. One more time. Okay, and notice how I'm letting the chord ring out over top, and the bass note is staccato. Okay, and this, you take the same rhythmic approach in bars 2 and 4 when you shift to the E7 chord. Okay, so this starts with your 2nd finger on the B, which is the 2nd fret of the A string. And you still have that 2/3 bar down on the 1st fret. And now you're going to be doing the same pull off, but you're letting go of your 3rd finger, and you're adding your 4th finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, which is a D. A D natural, I should point out. And then on beat 3 there, your thumb plays the low E, staccato. And then it repeats in bars 3 and 4. Okay? So, bars 1 through 4 sound like this. Okay, and you don't want to go too fast because you'll have time later in the piece to do lots of cello rondos and rubato. And you want to make sure that it's even too, because this is a dance. And that sets up that low A in bar 5. And then we have this beautiful melody, and Segovia fingers it on the 2nd string. And you can look back at the original piano score, which I always recommend that you do. and you'll find that there are notes that he leaves out. But this is always done with the authority of knowing what's best for the guitar and trying to convey the melody as plainly as possible, or I should say as obviously as possible to the listener. And I definitely try to do the same thing and value that approach. So that's the introduction, and this takes us to bars 5 through 8, which is our first phrase where we hear the melody. And I like to point out in this transcription what I like about it is taking the melody and playing it on the same string. So rather than breaking it up in bar 5, keeping it on the same string. See how much richer that is? And that's a concept coming from Segovia's school of thought, having studied with Christopher Parkening, that I really learned, and I would like to encourage in all of you guitarists that are working with us here at EliteGuitarist. And I think it's an overarching concept for all our instructors here and our tutorials. So I'm just throwing that shout out there to keeping the melody, singing it on the same string. So being mindful of that, in bar 5, we start with an open A, and then the melody on the and of 1, E, 5th fret of the B string with your 2nd finger, D sharp with your 1st finger, back to the E, and then on beat 3, up to the 10th fret, and you have a guide. You can slide if you want later. I'll talk about that on the repeats. Okay, and on the and of 3, you're going to the G sharp at the 9th fret. And again, you want to play with vibrato and rubato. Vibrato, where you manipulate the string, either with 1 finger or 2, if you like a fatter sound, and rubato, where you're taking some time and giving some back. Rather than playing mechanically and even, it's nice to sell the beautiful phrase right there, as it were. And a lot of this is intuitive, but you can listen and just get some ideas that way. Okay, and this takes us into bar 6, which is the second part of this little phrase. We have a B in the bass, 7th fret of the low E string with our middle finger, and then a high E open, and then this triplet 16th note phrase, D, G sharp, D sharp. But this D sharp kind of functions as a grace note into beat 2. Okay, so you could do that high E with either your middle finger or your ring finger, your A finger, and then MI here is part of that E7 arpeggio, D with your 3rd finger at the 7th fret of the G string, G sharp with your 1st finger at the 6th fret of the D string, and then a quick grace note slide, D sharp to E, with your middle finger from the 6th to the 7th fret of the A string, back to the G sharp and D, and then a staccato low E, because that's part of that bass figure we talked about in the intro. You create that staccato by plucking with the thumb and resting it back. So this is bars 5 and 6 together. And it repeats in bar 7 and 8. The only difference is on beat 3 of bar 7, you have an ornament on the and of 3, where you're going from the G sharp to the A and back to the G sharp, hammer on, pull off, and I use my 1st and 2nd finger. And bar 8 is exactly the same as bar 6. If you choose to take the repeat of this whole section, you have several options for playing this phrase. Take your time on the E, or take your time on the high A, or do a little bit of both. Maybe a little bit of push here. And I like to do a little decrescendo, and then bring out the thumb there. So just a lot to think about, especially for those of us that are a bit more advanced. This takes us now into bars 9 through 12. And again, as I mentioned, rubato and vibrato are key elements of interpretation. The trickiest part of this next phrase is in bar 12, where we have an ornament between the 10th and the 12th fret of the high E string, and we have to use our 3rd and our 4th finger. So, great little technical tip, just when you're warming up to practice this piece, play the D, and just hammer on with your pinky like this. And then do the pull-off. And then combine them. And then add the bar. because this is a tricky part of the piece. You want to kind of isolate that, but we'll get to that in a little bit. All right, so bar 9, we have an open A. We're in the 7th position, and of beat 1, E at the 9th fret of the G string with our 3rd finger, and then an A and a D sharp together, A at the 7th fret of the D string with our 1st finger, D sharp at the 8th fret of the G string, and then back to that E. And this is such a crunchy tritone that I like to emphasize it with vibrato, also taking time and breaking it with my thumb and middle finger. And on beat 3, we go to an A flat at the 6th fret of the D string, a C natural at the 8th fret of the high E string, and then a D natural at the 10th fret with our 4th finger. So this is bar 9. Use your 4th finger as a guide, and do vibrato here at the 12th fret of the high E string, which is an E. Take a little bit of time. This is beat 1 of measure 10. Open G with our thumb in the 3rd string. And then on the end of beat 1, we have a secondary voice here, which is the G at the 8th fret of the B string. This repeats on beat 2. And then on beat 3, it raises to a G sharp, which is really cool because you hear this crunch in between the two. Similar to a flat 7, or similar to the Hendrix chord, I should say. And then in bar 11, we get the melody moving to the 13th fret of the high E string, which is the F natural. And the inner voice goes from G to G sharp to A, and of beat 1, A at the 10th fret with your 1st finger on the B string, back to the E with your 4th finger at the 12th fret, and then the secondary voice peaks here at the 12th fret of the B string with your 3rd finger, which is a B. Okay? Beat 3, open G, and then a D with your 2nd finger at the 10th fret. So this is bar 11. Okay, bar 10 and 11. That's a really cool inner phrase. Okay, just something to think about. Bar 12, this is your first big stretch of the piece, followed by that ornament that I was talking about. Okay, so this is a C at the 8th fret of the low E string, and then an E with your 4th finger at the 12th fret of the high E string. You do a little fermata there, and then the ornament, which is why I do the fermata, to get my 3rd finger in line with that fret to execute the hammer-on pull-off ornament, triplet figure, and then resolve it to the C at the 8th fret, which is a part of the bar there. Although you don't need to put pressure down, so you don't have to start with pressure. You can apply the pressure once that note comes. Fill out the triad here. This is G, which is a part of the bar. It's the B string, and then E with your 2nd finger at the 9th fret of the G string. Then a quick grace note from F sharp, 9th fret of the A string, to the G, which is the 10th fret, and then back to those thirds, the E and the G. So this is bar 12. Okay, so that's the entire phrase, bar 9 through 12. Okay, lots of fun stuff you can do there.